right.
We're on.
Everybody turn on their mics. We will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to try to go through our regular action items quickly tonight if we can, because we do have some guests meeting us for non-public at 7, so we're going to try to go speedy if possible. We will start as usual by reviewing and signing payroll and accounts payable. For the period ending 12/14/24, we had payroll in the amount of $56,586.43. We had accounts payable in the amount of $90,332.43, and we had an ACH payment to Swayze for $255,000. This accounts payable is a little bit elevated from normal, as this includes holiday payouts for fire and police, as we usually do at the end of the year. Once we're done with that, I will take a motion to review and approve the consent agenda.
Second.
In tonight's consent agenda are public minutes from last week, non-public minutes from last week, which are sealed, the rec manifest, and building permits. Any discussion or amendments to the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a vote to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll pass the consent agenda. We'll now move on to public comment. We will open public comment at 6:02.
Liz Freer, South Road. I think you partially answered it, but I just want to make sure. So I listened to last week's select board meeting. I was kind of amazed that payroll, which is usually around 38,000, was 65,000 when we don't have a chief of police, a town administrator, or a treasurer. And so is that just, so it was not, 65 is a lot.
Yeah, there's additional payments at the end of the year. And if any townsperson is welcome to actually look at the list. We used to read them out loud at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
But we don't anymore because that's part of just the regular business of the town.
Well, it's part of the consent agenda, right? So we don't.
Correct.
So that, if somebody wanted to see what that is, so it's just police and fire extra payouts? Is that what it
This
what
week,
is?
yes. Yeah.
And what about last week when it was 65?
Last week, there was
It
an
even
extra
more.
payroll item that was in there.
And you're not allowed to say what the extra payroll item was?
We usually don't talk about individuals' payroll items in public. So we're not going to talk about that tonight, but you're welcome to pull any publicly available records if you'd like.
Okay,
Okay.
but so it may or may not be in the publicly available record.
Our payroll is publicly available to all citizens. Those are your
Okay.
tax dollars.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I will close it at 6:03. Thank you for helping us stay on track. Oh, you just made it. Okay.
No,
I already wrote 6:03 on my paper, so talk fast.
real fast. The Fuller document, was that sound? Where are we with
Right here.
that? You
On
are,
for tonight.
okay. Just curious, because I didn't see it on the
Yep.
agenda. Okay,
Yep,
thank you
I
very
think it's
much.
going to be under committee. Thank you. For discussion action items, the first thing we have is Justin to talk with us about a vehicle.
It's not a cheap.
Never is.
I think I
It's cheaper than another car.
braced a few of you guys for it. So the Denali pickup truck, which was, for anyone that doesn't know, was donated in the name of Steve Arkell to the town to be used for the police department. It does serve a lot of good purposes. However, it is in dire need of a new transmission. There is a known problem with the specific Sierra model year and just the transmission issues. They're potentially talking about a recall. However, as luck would have it, because it's a salvage title, we're not eligible for a recall. So I have a quote here. It's like $7,231.22. Because of these transmissions and the issues they've had, they are not easy to get. However, our mechanic does have his name on one. So with your permission, I'd like to move forward with that and just get this truck back up to speed going. My ultimate plan with this truck is to keep it. It does serve a great asset to have a pickup truck on the police department. I want to let the guys, well, one, eventually get a bed cover for it, put road closure signs, traffic cones, all that stuff in it, especially for snowstorms or pole comes down. Rather than call Wayne out in the middle of the night, we can get out there. The other thing is it's great for enforcement on 125. We've had a pretty good uptick in drug and narcotic arrests. One I posted just recently, and that's a great car to either monitor traffic with, it has the emergency equipment to stop traffic with, and it's pretty inconspicuous, so you can blend right in with it. So the goal is to keep that, let the patrol officers use it for that stuff, obviously when we have adequate staffing on, because we'll obviously have marked units on as well. But I just think it's too good of an asset to let go. And I mean, to top it off, it's a Denali package truck, so the other thing would keep it as a training car. If one of the officers are going to go to, say, Keene for a training, the thing's got heated and cooled seats, it's got a sunroof, they can ride in comfort to a distance training. And I think it's got less than 70,000 miles on it, plenty of life in it if we do the transmission. But you know, the big thing for me is I'd like to just honor the reason it was donated to the town and just let the police department use it as it should be used.
What was the quote that you had, the number?
$7,231.22, and that's for the transmission and the torque converter, because unfortunately those ones you can't do one without the other. And then the labor, the fluid's expensive.
Board questions or comments for the lieutenant?
Do you
on
have it
this?
in your budget?
No.
Yes.
Maybe.
I was gonna
Hard to say with 2 weeks
yeah,
left.
if we had like ARPA money left over that you needed, maybe throw some of that towards it. I don't know obviously what that's gone to, but the hard question is whether or not it's in my budget.
I would say it might be, but you do have 2 weeks of payroll and all the holiday buyouts are just gonna go on here. So I would, you may not
Yeah.
have it in your budget, but part of that is our doing and that we've allowed you to overdraw a few of those lines this year.
Which I appreciate.
We do have plenty of room in our bottom line budget, especially with it being 55 degrees in December. Our snow and ice budget is very underspent. So we do have some room, or we could discuss other ways. I don't know what you currently have in your detail fund.
If I read it correctly, I think there's plenty in it, but I want to just hold off, even if we do like a half and half out of detail and half out of budget, something like that. I would definitely comfortable at least half out of detail, if you guys are.
I don't remember. Did we see the detail of it? I forget what it had in it. Yeah. It's okay. I
Yeah.
think it was like 16,000. It was there was some
Yeah.
money in there, but not, we were letting it build back up to try to buy another car
Yeah.
eventually when it gets back up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be okay.
And we
just-
looked at your impact fees. I don't think we could
I don't
use
think we
impact
could
fees
use
for this.
I'd be okay, just given that one of the reasons why they're overdrawn right now is because we let them buy a car.
Yeah.
And the board has done all the things that would
Yeah.
lead them to being this close. So.
We also still have our $20,000 offset in our section of the budget that is in there to be a cushion for things. So we could use that too if we want to. We have plenty of line items that we could use if we needed.
No, we have to put it on the vehicle repair line.
No, I know, but I mean, the money is there in
Yes,
other lines.
yes, actually,
Yes.
so that's perfect. So we don't,
Yeah.
Yep.
How do other board members feel about approving this and or how to fund it?
Yeah, I think we should approve it. I think 50% from detail makes sense.
John or Andy?
Definitely fix the truck. I would be more in turn to just put the 7,000 into the cruiser maintenance line, but I would vote half and half too.
Even knowing that it may overdraw their bottom line budget?
Yeah.
Yeah, which we gave them permission to do.
Do you want
Anybody
me to
feel
make-
strongly about the
I'll
half and
make a
half
motion
versus?
that we apply it to the cruiser line.
All of it? Or
Yeah,
For the 723122?
yes,
Okay.
that, whatever that number was.
Okay, we've got a motion.
I mean, if it turns out to be more, because this is just a quote, we can take the rest of the detail if you want.
Sure.
If you want to later approve that or approve that now, anything over, do detail.
That's a current quote as far as we know?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and Mark's pretty good about
Okay.
keeping us, he
You
understands.
can let us
that
know.
We're on a budget, yeah, he's
Okay.
really good to us.
So we have a motion from Letty to let them do this out of their budget, knowing that it will overdraw that line. Is there a second for that?
did John have a comment? He didn't.
No.
Then I'll second it.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I mean, does it make sense that if it goes over to then put it at details?
No, because it doesn't matter.
In general, we expect our department heads to stay within their individual budget. This budget is an exception this year in that we let them buy a vehicle out of that wasn't budgeted.
There were a
And
couple
knowing,
things that- yeah.
there were some other things too. So knowing that that would overdraw their budget is certainly not something that's going to reflect on the lieutenant or his department because it was our doing, not his.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If you had done it,
Yeah.
we could have a little talk
It'd
with
be a
you.
different, yeah.
But we voted to let you do it. So it's knowing that we had some wiggle room in some other sections of our budget.
So Paul, just my thinking on it is, if we take the 7, 3,000, trying for a future year for a car.
Right.
That's my only thought, is that you're just pulling out, you're pulling from somewhere, one way or the other. This year, it's now.
Yep.
The other way, it's in the future.
Right. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, I have, how long is that, how long do you expect to be able to use that for? Assuming nothing else breaks, obviously.
Like years left on this
Yeah.
truck? Oh, man, at least 5.
Okay, because it's not a patrol vehicle, so it
Correct.
doesn't get that. Okay.
Yep. Great, doesn't have the miles on it.
Yep, that's
Great.
good.
I'll make it last 5, put it that way.
Perfect.
Don't hold that against me.
Next action
No
item is seasonal plow drivers. We've had, I believe, 2 applicants for seasonal plow drivers. We talked about it at one point at this board and decided that we wanted to make sure that these drivers had certified driving records that showed that they were safe and reliable drivers. That has now come back to us. I think Jillian, you saw and reviewed those, correct? That came back? And Wayne reviewed them. I don't know for sure. Do you remember in the past, Andy, did the board explicitly vote to allow hiring of seasonal plow drivers, or did we defer that to Wayne to make those decisions? We haven't had many since I've been here.
No.
Because of the shortage of staff.
Well, we've always had the same people that came back every year, so it
Right,
wasn't
I think these are new folks.
but it should be, we are the hiring and firing
Yeah.
authority, so we have
Yeah,
to
that's what I
make.
figured. That's why I stuck it on here.
But if Wayne approves them, then yay.
Yeah, I guess especially if, like, the next couple weeks, we're not gonna have meetings. So if there's
Yeah,
big
the thing we
snow,
were
we
waiting
need
on
to-
was their certified driving record. We got those back. Wayne feels comfortable with
Yeah.
them. So I'm just looking for, I mean, I don't know,
Moved.
do you have their names or? Does anybody
Can
want
we-
their
can
names
we
or
move to
everyone
let
feels
Wayne
comfortable?
Pick his people.
I think it should come through us for a
Okay.
rubble stamp to know who's working for the town of Brentwood. But if Wayne feels comfortable with them and they have a good driving record, we're gonna say yes, right? Because we've been looking for these people for a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
All right, so did you make a motion?
I did.
Andy made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
We
I'm
just
an
have
aye.
to come up with a pay scale.
Yes, we can talk with Wayne about that. I know that it is there's a budget line, and I don't know if it has a pay scale associated with it.
standard for?
Yeah.
I think
Like, right now?
For seasonal workers, we'll have
If
to
they
look
have a
up the policy.
CDL, yes. If they have a CDL, they should go now, and then they could get called during the pool. But that'll be for our next drug test provider to figure out.
All right, thank you. So the next item, Jillian helped me a lot with BMSI, and I had to do some sleuthing and a lot of math and some corrections, but I was able to determine that we have $87,258.13 left in ARPA. We have more than were anticipating because the voting machine was less. I think some of the highway funds that we had pledged ended up coming in less. The mold remediation, it came in much, much, much less than we were expecting, so we actually didn't use ARPA for it. We just assigned it to a government line item. And so of that 87,000 that is left, we do have to make a vote as a board to pledge that to a definite item by the end of this year. We will then need to go into a federal government portal next spring when it opens to tell that agency how we spent the money in 2024 and what our plans are for 2025. And then we will need to do that once again in 2026 if we end up spending money in 2026. So we have used this money for a variety of different things since we received it. The total number that we received way back in the beginning was around $460,000. So this is what we have left. My suggestion, after talking with another town administrator on how to make sure we do not lose any of this money, if we do not pledge this money correctly, we have to give it back to the federal government, which I don't think any of us would like to do. So the cleanest way for us to handle this right now is to pledge this money to a future budgetary line item or a future invoice that we already know of so that it is officially pledged. We do not have to pay it now, but we will pay it next year. My suggestion, and I'm absolutely happy to take other suggestions from the board, but my personal suggestion was I split this amount in two, so that would be $43,629, and apply that to 2025 and 2026 to just give us a slight reduction on that recycling line. We really could do this on any line in the budget. I just thought that was a fairly friendly line because it's a big number, so it's very easy to take 43,000 out of it. And it won't fix our long-term recycling cost problem, but it would give us a slight buffer for 2 years while we have other budgetary items like fire department growth and things like that. So that was my suggestion, but I'm happy to hear any other suggestions or thoughts from the board on that.
I like it.
Love it.
How much was the line?
It is $143,050. So if we attributed this credit to it, we could decrease next year's budget by that $43,629, and that line would drop to $99,421. So if we do want to do that, we will have to reopen that budget, as I mentioned below, and put that new number in. It will allow us to reduce our budget a little bit, which we are hoping to do.
How would that compare to what it, previous year?
So that would be it going up from 70,400 to 99,400, so up about 29,000 instead of up the 72,000 that unfortunately that contract dropped in our lap at. So it's kind of a Band-Aid on a problem, but I thought splitting it over 2 years would allow that to just soften that budget line a little bit. So I've
Moved.
heard some-
Second.
All right. Wow, I should come up with ideas like this more often to reduce the budget. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
I
I am
move
as
we
well.
reopen the recycling budget.
Yes,
Okay.
Second.
okay. All in favor of reopening the recycling budget?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. So we'll reopen that budget. That line item is the 393 line under recycling, which is currently at 143,050. I'll take a motion to reduce that to 99,421.
Moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, sounds good. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We just reduced our budget by 43,000. All right, perfect. Next on the list here, we earlier this year, I think in May, for the first time as a board, made an official policy of how to handle earned time to try to make it universal across the board for all employees. Our current policy is that employees can roll over 80 hours, can get a payout of 40 hours. And if anybody wanted a payout that was above 40 hours, it would have to be a one-time exception that came before the board. I would like to suggest that Jillian, who has gone above and beyond over the past 2 months, has helped us so much, and has purposely chosen not to take some vacation that she would have otherwise taken in order to help us with things like payroll and accounts payable and all of our millions of questions that we ask her every single day. I would like her to get paid out her extra hours that she could not take in vacation. It would be a total of 81.3 hours. So rather than the 40 hours that she's eligible for, it would be 81.3. So what this board would be approving is a one-time exception to pay out an extra 41.3 hours.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions about that?
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank
There
you.
you go. All in
Personally,
favor?
thank you.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
big aye. Okay. That passes. Thank you. Here is steps. I think everybody that we got a letter from Kip Kaiser, our building inspector, to let us know that he is looking to ease into retirement. And I had a conversation with him to really clarify what that means and what that will look like for the town. And so the way Kip and I left it is that starting January 1st, he does not want to leave us without somebody in that office. So as we try to recruit for that position, what he would like to do is pull back. And right now he works 34 hours. He would like to pull back to around 20 hours or kind of as needed, with the understanding that if he's onboarding somebody, he will do whatever hours is needed to do that. And that he would like the board, and I was in support of this, to consider letting him do some of those hours remote. We did pass a rule a couple of months ago that we wanted our employees to be in person whenever possible. I did tell him that I would ask for an exception for him because he does have some property in Florida that was damaged by some of the recent storms, and he needs to go down there to deal with that in January and or February, but can do a lot of his normal building inspector online things remotely. And so given that he is willing to not just outright retire on January 1st, but give us kind of a buffer period of time, I'm going to ask the board to consider allowing him to do some of those hours remote. The other conversation, which I know we've had before at this board and with our prior town administrator, but never really resolved, was sort of the things that have gone and piled on to Kip over the years. So he is both the building inspector, also does all the code enforcement, also ends up doing all building maintenance issues, which have kind of just slide downhill to him. And so his feedback to me is that as we look to hire someone, we might want to really consider how to best structure either the hours or the job of the building inspector to allow some clarity between code enforcement, building inspection, building maintenance, that those do not necessarily all need to live in the same person. And I don't think, that's not something I'm looking for this board to necessarily solve tonight, but to just be aware as we move forward and as we're looking to hire, that we need to be pretty explicit with candidates coming in about how we're going to divide town. I think this is kind of simmering below the surface for a number of years.
Is that something that we could do based on what sort of applicants we get? Like if we get applicants that are great in 2 of those areas, but not the third? Or should we set what that
Potentially.
is?
I think Kip also felt that potentially the building maintenance issues maybe could be reallocated to like a part-time highway position or to somebody else in the town that isn't also doing all the code enforcement and all the building inspection. Like when light bulbs burn out or, you know, things, somebody has to go up on a ladder to do something, that always falls to Kip. And he doesn't necessarily have really the time to do that. So it may just depend on whether we would want to flex this position from its 34 hours up a little bit, or whether we just kind of want to move forward with the hiring process and see how these different pieces would work for a new person who, you know, Kip also, I don't think he would mind me saying this, is not a young man and has some different feelings about getting up on ladders and stuff than maybe a different applicant would feel. And so I think that I don't know that we need to solve this right now, but I think the board just needs to be aware that this is a potential issue for the future that we may have to figure out a little bit. I don't necessarily want to grow this position right now, given some of our budgetary issues that we're dealing with, and which would require more funding. But I think we just need to be sensitive that that position is a little bit fragile, I think, right now, given the demands that are on it. Some of that might be improved by getting him a little bit more help. I wasn't aware of this. I don't know, maybe Andy, if you were, but Tamara had been helping him a lot in the past with some of the online system and keeping track of like code enforcement issues. Jillian obviously cannot do that right now, but I think we might talk about how we could get that position a little bit of administrative help in the future, which I think would take some of the load off that position. So just things to think about for the future. But I was very thankful to hear that he's not just like peace outing on January 1st.
Yes.
And he's willing to stay with us for weeks or maybe even a few months to try to get somebody else in that position. And the one request he did have for me is he really would like a couple of like iPads or tablets to be able to take out on the job and have his
Already requested
inspectors.
them.
So I already approved it and we're already ordering them. Just small things to make that position easier. So what I'm looking for tonight is really for the board to accept the idea of him going down to 20 hours with some flexible remote component of that as of January 1st. And I'm happy to hear any
Can
comments
you
or
also
ideas.
add that we post the job now? I think we should post
Yeah.
the job.
Yes.
And are we gonna use the job description that he gave us?
I think so. I mean, I think that we need to make sure it reflects, I mean, I don't think it says stuff on it like building maintenance, right? The stuff that's kind of come on to him, I don't think is actually in the job
It also doesn't
description.
have a number on it, either a number of hours or a pay scale or anything, so we're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah, I would assume, given that we've already accepted that budget, that we would probably leave that. If he drops down to 20 hours for a few months, we'll have a little bit of wiggle room in that budget because we'll be underspending that line. But I don't want to cut that in case we have like a great candidate that
Yeah,
drops in our
yeah.
lap in a week.
Yep.
Other board comments or suggestions about this process?
Motion.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to let Kip drop down to 20 hours with remote flexibility. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that will pass, and we will let him know that. Great. We already reopened the recycling budget, so tonight we're going to talk about benefits first.
Do
Ben?
you want to do that contract so we can have Heather?
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. Yes, Paul, we'll turn it over to you because we do need a notary, and so we want to have Heather notarize for us before she goes. So I will turn it over to you.
Yep, so we have the Fuller Conservation easement, which is set to close at the end of the week. We need to sign the easement, which we have an executory interest in, and this will be our executory interest with the easement land of about 28 some odd acres with about 3 acres that are reserved. I've been through, there's a lot of legal jargon, but it's been reviewed at a number of different levels by town council, by myself, by conservation.
Selt lawyers, I think
Selt,
also.
Yeah.
It's been well
council.
reviewed.
Yeah, Rob Wolfchuk, so it's been,
Great.
you know, it's been well reviewed. It looks like it's ready to go. Under budget from the 250 that had been bonded, it's supposed to come in at 241 at on the HUD statement, so.
Great.
looking-
And you didn't have any concerns with the final version?
No,
Perfect.
I mean, there's a survey that we were hoping to have with this, but there was a surveyor unfortunately is ill, so the survey will be recorded at a later date, and that's referenced in.
And it's not required for our signing?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, the property is all described in terms of
Great.
what's being reserved and what's subject to the easement, so.
Great, wonderful. Good. I'd like to thank Becky and the Conservation Committee for all of their hard work on this, and the voters will be very happy to hear that we are officially moving forward with a parcel. Any board members have questions or concerns before we sign this document?
We need to move.
I'll take a motion for us. All 5 of us are signing it, Paul?
Yes.
Move.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll all sign that, and then Heather will notarize us, and we will be good to go.
You should go that.
And thank you, Paul, for helping to review that. And if anyone is listening who has any property they would like to see conserved, contact the Conservation Commission because they would like to hear from you. Thank you, Heather. Okay, we're doing good on time. Yep. And who does that go to next?
It goes back to Ben at Selt.
Okay.
So if you want to scan it in and send it to me, and then I'll get the original from you.
Becky's got.
There's an article on the self-quarterly newsletter about this property.
Cool.
The interview with Mrs. Fuller. I have copies. I can send them to you. I don't know if I have it electronically. but I send
You
them
can
to you.
put them on the website too, maybe. That'd be great. Great, awesome. All right, thank you, Heather. All right, next we are going to review the benefits budget. This is the budget that had been on our list last week, but we realized we didn't have the updated Primex numbers. Letty was able to get onto the portal and get those numbers for us. So the budget that you see in front of you has the updated contractual numbers with Primex. So we had about a 17% increase in our property and liability insurance and about a 12% increase in workers' compensation insurance. This board had previously reduced the unemployment line and then increased the insurance deductible line. This budget did go before BudCom last night at this current number of 186,111 and did pass 5-0. So I'm looking for discussion or a vote on this budget tonight.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great. Passes both boards. The next is the insurance budget, which we actually need to reopen. So I'll take a vote to reopen
Insurance benefits.
the health insurance benefits. They're both called insurance.
I know.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor of reopening the budget?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we'll reopen it. So the changes that we made to this budget is, once again, thank you to Heidi, who is the town administrator from Fremont, who's been really helpful to me on multiple occasions. Letty and I were a little bit confused when we were putting together this budget, that just the way that it was done, and I did confirm with Heidi how Fremont does it, and we made some small adjustments. So essentially what we did is the health insurance line used to reflect our total cost, and it wasn't subtracting out the employee contribution. So it's more accurate to just budget for what the town cost is. So we have made those adjustments, and with that, this budget now only goes up 2.48%. And that's because, really, mostly because of the strategic sort of change that we made, more so than actually the costs going down. And so this is a change that we will carry forward under our new town administrator. And so that just changes this budget a little bit for a 2.48% increase for a bottom line number of $582,725. So I'm looking for a motion to approve it at that new number.
Moved.
Second. Did we reopen it already?
Yes.
Yes.
Just wanna make sure.
Yep, we reopened it first, and now we have a motion and a second for the 582,725. Any further discussion? No? Sure. Can you come up to the microphone?
If the building inspector is going down from 34 to 20, he's not eligible for benefits anymore, right?
I think at 34, there's certain he has like health benefits, but I
Right.
think he already doesn't qualify for New Hampshire retirement.
It will
right?
change, yes.
It will change,
I
okay,
think it will change a little bit, yes.
okay.
But he still will have health until he no longer works for us.
Under 20 hours.
What?
We'll figure out his benefits as we move forward.
Yes.
Um,
January 1st. Come on.
Yeah, we got
So
2
much
weeks.
time.
So we have a motion and a second from Andy and John for this new number. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that will pass. The town administrator budget, which BudCom had previously held, I did ask them to approve, and they did approve. So the only budget out of all of our budgets, they also approved street lighting. The only budget out of all of our budgets that is not a match right now is the general government budget, or government buildings budget. I'm gonna hold on reopening that right now because of what we are discussing next, and you will see why we are holding it. So, Letty, do you wanna take that topic?
Yeah, so we entered all of the budgets as they have currently been approved by us, I guess. So that general government edit isn't there.
Oh, yeah, I skipped that one. We'll go back.
That general government difference isn't there, but everything else is, which gets us to an increase over last year's budget of a little over 12%, which is not good. Too high. I know that where we started with that budget in the fall, which didn't have trash or like it was missing a couple of these big items, was even a little higher than that. So we've already tried to cut where we can. I think we need to cut more to try to get into single digits.
Yep. Yeah, Letty and I have been having discussions. We went through the entire budget line item by line item, looking at some that have like a little wiggle room in them or that are kind of a safety cushion, and some that have been underspent last year, and we're kind of doing some research. We certainly don't want to cut any lines that are going to get us in a bad situation in the next budget year, but we do think there's some room. We did just make a cut for the ARPA. There's some other potential cuts that we have in mind. So I had made sort of a first pass of the budget, then Letty did a second pass of it and actually assigned some numbers to it, to multiple different line items. So I think Letty is going to share that information with all board members and just have you guys kind of look it over to get your basic feeling on how you would feel about some of these cuts. And then I gave BudCom a heads up that we were going to bring this tonight and that our hope is to get the budget increase down to single digits and that we would bring that back to BudCom in January. So I think Letty and I had an intention to have all our board members kind of look it over the next couple of weeks. We're going to do a little bit more research on some of the line items just to make sure we're not going to get ourselves in trouble with any of the cuts, and then bring it on to this board for explicit discussion on our January 7th meeting,
Whatever that
I think it
first
is.
meeting is.
And then that would be in time, if we do decide to make some cuts, we could just reopen a bunch of budgets, make those cuts, and then I can bring those to BudCom. BudCom was gonna have a meeting towards the end of January, but when I talked to them about us potentially doing this plan, they wanted to move their meeting up. So currently they have a meeting scheduled on the 13th. So if we end up changing budgets on the 7th, we will bring it to BudCom on the 13th, which will still be almost a month before the budget hearing. So we'll give plenty of time for us to communicate with the public what our final budgetary number is. So I think what Letty and I were looking for is the board generally in favor of that endeavor and willing to spend some time looking over our suggestions and weighing in on them?
Very much so.
Okay, that's good. I was hoping you would say that.
And you can also look at the whole, so I just emailed everyone the whole document. If you want to look through all of the lines, if you see something that
That we missed.
we missed, please let us know.
I mean,
Is which,
the problem, I'm very much in favor. You know, we're talking about some significant numbers because 7.1 million, every percentage point is going to be
Mhm.
71,000 bucks.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
No, it's going to take some work.
yeah.
I think we have, for example, we just cut 43,000. So that helps. Every little bit, that gets us down to a budget at 12.1%. You know, we're getting there. I do think that there are a few slightly bigger ticket items that we could look at. One, I actually did want to just put in people's mind, and actually I wanted to ask Andy, who's been on the board for a long time, the history of this. Generally, we use fire station impact fees to pay down part of the bond principal.
Correct.
And usually we pay down 25,000. I don't know if there's ever been discussion about potentially using a little bit more to pay that down a little more, or if there would be a reason either to do that or not to do that. Because that's one thing we could move a little bit. We just looked up fire station and they had pretty good amount in their impact fee that might allow us to pay that down a little bit further to give us a little wiggle room.
Yeah, I think we were trying to think of places that were one-time expenses, not a repeating expense, that we could use impact fees, or if we could encumber something into the next year.
Right.
how much are we able to encumber at this moment?
What?
It's hard to know. I mean, when you look at, so our budget as of yesterday, so it doesn't include today's accounts payable, we had 880,000 left in our budget, but that's obviously going to
Of course,
shrink
that's gonna change,
significantly
yeah.
over the next 2 weeks. So we definitely have some room. We had already talked about encumbering salt with Wayne, so that is a relatively big number. That may allow us to cut that budget further. But the fire one is just one that occurred to me because that's already a way we pay down our budget. Might we be willing to pay that down a little bit more next year, given that we are using extra budgetary dollars to support the growth of fire? So that's just one I thought is worth thinking about from the board. If we use all of the impact fees, then it gives us a help next year and isn't there in the future. So I don't think we want to do that. But if we think about paying down more than the 25,000, if we pay down 45,000, 35,000, 50,000, it would give us another 0.5% increase. So we'll have to take it wherever we can get it. So I just want the board to think about that. Do you see any reason, Andy, not to think about doing that?
No, no, just as long as the chief didn't have
Right, earmarked. for
earmarked for,
which I don't believe he does, but we can certainly check with him because he put the PFAS gear in ARPA and his budget. And I know that was a big one that he was trying to get some money for.
Wasn't PFAS gear?
PFAS free gear.
Yeah, no, I
Not
know what you're
PFAS
saying.
gear.
But wasn't
Load
that,
him up with PFAS.
didn't we only do like half of what we needed?
We did. We pledged half of that in ARPA and he put half of it in his budget for next year.
But
We could encumber for it if we wanted and take that out of the budget. That's another moving part. And I think if we can, since
Because they
fire,
needed more than they asked for, right?
that's what I was saying.
I have the invoice in my email. It's in the mid 40,000 and we gave them 24 of ARPA. We kind of split it in the middle.
Right, but how many suits did that buy and how many do they need?
Oh, I don't have the answer for that. I think they
Because
were,
if we can
I-
buy them now,
we can talk to the chief about that. We
then
could
that-
encumber
out of this
some
year's-
funds for that.
up
But-
their budget this year.
but just remember, buying now doesn't save taxes next year. Buying now, just the money's not there to buy down taxes next year. So you're not,
Yeah,
by encumbering something this year, yes, you're cutting next year's budget, but you're also losing that money
to pay down taxes.
to pay down taxes.
Yeah, it's a
So
dot, yeah.
But it's money to pay down taxes that we're just gonna reappropriate to buy the suits next year.
I think we have to determine what the specific objective is.
Yeah.
Is the specific objective to reduce the budget, or is a specific objective to reduce
Tax rate.
tax?
Yeah.
rate? Like,
Yeah,
Right.
if you're using
We
impact
can't-
fees,
you
that
have
has.
to make that decision.
Yeah, it's a difference, right? If you use impact fees to pay something down, that has an overall benefit to the taxpayer. To Andy's point, if you encumber to reduce your budget, it kind of washes out a little bit.
Kind of a wash.
Yep.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
More of a-
But I'm hearing
The
general,
difference is the percentage change, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to get the budget down because.
we're trying to.
No, I know, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that, I think that's a goal and
Yeah.
I would agree with that because otherwise we may lose control of that situation.
Yeah, yeah. I think also it's really helpful when you think about our budget and you look at the increase, that the bulk of the increase, so out of the like $800,000 increase in our budget, about 150,000 of that is spread across multiple budgets. And all of the rest of it is fire, police, and waste. It's those three things that are driving our budget increase. And so I think we need to be overt with the public that some of those things are not under our control and some are, and some are real necessities to the town. I think it does really help people to understand that we just didn't let everybody inflate their budget. And really that number is only 150,000, but that it's really those three big ticket items that are driving our budget up.
The spreadsheet or the ledger that you just sent, does that include the proposed changes, or is that just where?
That's where we are right now.
So we'll talk.
Yes,
about
we
that.
have sort of a working spreadsheet that includes if you took various amounts out, what our bottom line would be.
No, I think she emailed that. Yeah, if we could get that working document
Yeah.
too, just to.
Sorry, what do you need? What do you want?
If you can share the one that has the proposed cuts and kind of where that would get us,
So
Like
that
a
we can
blank
have
one?
that.
or the initial proposal, because I think that would be helpful for them to kind of get a ballpark. And some of those we know we might not be able to cut. With our town administrator being out, we have to be a little bit careful because some accounts payable may have gone to a slightly different line item than it used to. So if we look at a line and say, oh, we didn't spend anything on that line, we must not need that line, we might be shooting ourselves in the foot. So we have to be a little circumspect with each of our cuts and make sure we're really looking. And we've gotten good enough with BMSI, or these two have, that we've been able to track down some of that and figure out how to correct some of those things. So we're doing the best that we can, and I'm hearing general support to look at that and have a discussion in January about any cuts we can make. And if we can't get it into single digits, we'll get it as low as we can and do our best to explain to the public why the budget is what it is. Okay? All right, so good. I'm hearing general support for that. And thank you for Andy for reminding me that I skipped the welfare budget, which needs to be reopened. So the welfare budget, everyone remembers that we moved regional association assistance into the welfare budget because that seemed to be its more appropriate home. We had budgeted for next year for $18,000 for direct community assistance for applicants that apply to us for aid. The regional associations group did their regular annual meeting to assign the award amounts that they are going to award this year. And based on who applied and what they asked for, that number is going to come in lower than is budgeted for. So this is a place where we can remove $5,000 from the budget. So I would like to get a motion to reopen that budget.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor of reopening the welfare budget?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So the change that was made at BudCom was to reduce that 800 line item in that budget from $18,000 down to $13,000. And that changed the whole budget. It had been, you already put the change in here. Oh, you're so good. So that had dropped the total budget to $20,407. It had been $25,407. So I'll take a motion to reduce it by $5,000 to $20,407 as approved by BudCom.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions about that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'm an aye as well, so we will decrease that budget. And thank you as always to our regional association group for helping us dispense that charitable assistance to the community. All right, so that's all we have for budgets. It's 6:47. If we have any pressing or urgent committee updates, let's do those now. And then I think, I don't know, you're still here. Justin has a non-public for us that we'll do first, and then we have some guests coming at 7. So it looks like we're on a pretty good track for that. So let's start with committee updates or board business, and we'll start with Andy.
I'm good.
Okay, John?
Meeting with EconDev Thursday this week.
Okay. Paul?
Conservation Commission, the open space did identify a parcel for purposes of at least starting a process.
Great.
And an appraisal. This would be not an easement, but an actual
Very
parcel.
loud.
Okay.
We could talk more about it, but it would probably be best if we did so in a non-public.
My understanding is it's still in a non-public sphere right now.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yep.
Letty?
Nothing that can't wait.
Okay. And I think I've basically given all my BudCom updates already, so I don't need to do those further. Any other general board business? No, if not, I will take a motion to go into non-public. We'll need to go into non-public for hiring, for legal. I think that's it.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. And we'll take a roll call vote to go into non-public. Andy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Letty?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so we will go into non-public at 6:49. Thank you to the public for attending and have a great holiday. Both of our next 2 meetings are canceled due to being on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve.
Oh, thank you.
Right? Exactly. All right, can you take us off live? Live?
Yes.
Yes, it's John, I believe.
I'm trying so hard not to steal your